Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast. Hey there, Karma Crew. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mind Your Own Karma Beyond the Bandage. If you pressed play today, here's what I know about you. You're tired of surface level fixes. You've probably tried things that worked for a while or didn't at all, and you're hungry for something that gets to the root of what's really going on. You are someone who wants lasting change, not temporary relief. Today's guest is Jose Mendoza, a registered cardiovascular invasive specialist turned doctor of Chinese energetic medicine. After years of watching patients return with the same struggles, Jose realized that true healing needed to go deeper. He now blends ancient wisdom with modern science to help people transform their health and their lives on every level: physical, energetic, and spiritual. It's time to rip off the bandage and dive in, because this episode might just change your life. We are welcoming Jose Mendoza to the show today. Welcome to the Karma Crew. Welcome to Mind Your Own Karma.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I want to talk about you a little bit and what you do. What is exactly Chinese energetic medicine?
The simplest way for me to explain it is think acupuncture without needles or acupressure, but without physical touch.
Oh, wow.
So, all of the philosophy, all of the theoretical principles behind it are the same, but it's also the pre communist revolution medicine from China. In order for you to really get a full grasp, I have to explain a little bit that when TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, was first instituted, the Chinese government wanted to have a method that was testable and repeatable, because initially they were trying to use Western medicine, but they were noticing that their people weren't working as well as before. And because it was an emerging new government and country, and they needed people to be strong and work for Mother China, they decided to go out and start testing different folk remedies and different folk healing. So they came to a subset and they picked up things like needling, moxibustion, and everything else that's present in acupuncture today. But what they did is they kind of removed some of the aspects that were subjective, spiritual, or they couldn't test very well for various reasons. So what we have today, it works and it can be tested, but it's missing a lot of the aspects of the original medicine. Thus, to give you the full explanation, it's the same as you would find with acupressure, acupuncture without physical touch, and it includes a more holistic understanding of the entire human body.
Interesting. And you've woven together medical training, energy work, and a deep understanding of the body's subtle language. Before you found Chinese energetic medicine, what was the moment that you realized there was more to healing than you were taught in your traditional medicine background?
Well, it started at the same time for me. I was going to school because initially I was working in cardiovascular procedures. Think heart attacks, pacemakers, things of that nature. That's the field I was entering. And so around the same time is when I was introduced to a breathwork event that I attended, that the foundation was built off of Chinese, all the Chinese medical things. So of course that intrigued me and I learned a little bit, and it was always in the back of my mind. So as I was working alongside in the medical field, I was also picking up and learning a little more with the Chinese medical things. And I started learning a little more about the herbs, started learning a little more about the acupuncture, and so on and so forth. So really, it was just building along at the same time. But it would be initially when I first started, well, training to go to what I did in the medical field.
I've been in the medical field for 35 years. I'm a sonographer,
Hmm.
and I found that my patients were coming to me year after year with the same problem, the same pain,
Right.
and we could find nothing wrong with them. And that was frustrating for me, because after a while I became one of those patients. And so then I went on a
Hmm.
journey
Hmm.
to figure out what's the missing piece. And
Right.
so I got into somatic mindful guided imagery. And so I'm a practitioner of that now, the somatic modalities. So yeah, that kind of led me to that. So was it kind of similar? Did you see your patients, that you were thinking something's missing?
Yeah, it after a while being involved with both is when I started to notice, yeah, there's something else going on because some people would come in. So there's some strange cases. I could have a boatload that I could talk about. But for example, you would see people come in. There was one gal who was 30 years old and she was healthy. Like she ran, she exercised, she was vegetarian, still had heart disease.
Mm,
And it was significant enough that she needed to have it fixed. As one example. There, of course, would always be repeat offender is not the right word, but there'd be people that would come back again and again for the same issue, and they weren't changing their habits. Some of them smoked and they didn't stop smoking.
hmm
Some of them drank excessively and they still didn't stop drinking. And so because of that, there was something else that I knew was going on. I said, well, I'm not entirely sure about this. Like, I don't know in the moment. I don't know what it is that's causing this issue for this person, but I know that what we're doing is more of a bridge or a bandage to kind of help them get over
mm,
this.
yeah.
It's really sad to say we don't cure heart disease in in that environment where we do stents and everything else. We simply fix the issue and help them get a better quality of life because eventually a lot of them do end up returning. Even if they're taking their medicines, they do end up returning later on because when you put in a foreign object, it does tend to close down again at times.
Mm,
It depends on a lot of different variables, but it is
hmm
a possibility.
Yeah, and if you're not really getting to the root of what caused it in the first place and fixing that, whether it be smoking or something, a trauma in the past or whatever it
Mhm.
may be, then yeah, it might, come out in a different way or come back as the same problem. Yeah. So I'm sure many listeners have heard of acupuncture and Reiki, and you kind of said that it's like that, but different. How does
Mhm.
your modality differ from those practices exactly?
Well, when it comes to acupuncture or acupressure, as I said, it's no touch. So
Mm,
first thing people think is, oh, it's like Reiki. Yes, but no.
yeah.
With Reiki, you are using certain positions and you are using symbols depending on whether you received them or not to help guide and facilitate the energy where it needs to go. So it's a very intuitive type of protocol. Ours is a little different because although we do work with the energy in an intuitive way and let it do its thing as it needs to, we're also very targeted. So you could say it's like Reiki as if it was done by a surgeon because of the precision that we have and we're the focus and the target that we have. So if someone comes to me with, let's say they have an ulcer, the way they're helped with Reiki, and I don't personally do Reiki, but I'm familiar enough with how the general process is.
hmm
But for every person, it's pretty much the exact same treatment because, yes, the energy is intuitive and it will do what it needs to do. So when they come to me, we focus on that. Other things pop up. That's where the intuitive thing comes in that need to be worked with and pulled. But also, there's things that I can do that last after the session is done. So, in other
hmm
words, I can send them home with the equivalent would be I can send them home with antibiotics per se that they can then continue to have and with prescription exercises too that they can use to facilitate in the process because I am like a potter and I can mold the clay and I can shape the clay and I can wet the clay, but it's a lot of work and it's harder for me to work the clay and moisten it. So if they're doing their prescription exercises and if they're doing what they need to do on their end, they're the ones pouring water for me on the clay as I work it. It makes it easier for us to finally end up with the final result.
Hmm. So is it kind of Western and Eastern medicine together or?
In a sense, yes, because there is still an anatomical, physiological understanding to what goes on. But as I said, we still work primarily with the Eastern theories. Like if someone comes in with a stomach ulcer, yes, I'm treating the stomach ulcer, but at the same time, I'm balancing out the five yin organs, which is an aspect of Chinese traditional medicine. I'm also checking to see how is their energy on the energetic level, how is their spirit body doing. I'm also working with the chakra system at the same time. I may be working with the meridian system. I may be working with the direct organ itself. Like it varies from situation to situation, but we have an understanding of both because it's necessary. In order for us to really grasp the physical body, you have to have that anatomical physiological understanding because that's where that lies. Then the Chinese medicine comes in and gives us an energetic understanding, but also through that same framework, we get the spiritual understanding as well. So we get all three levels. And I work on all three levels independently or together, depending on the situation.
So somebody like me, if I came to you, they couldn't find anything. They ran every test they could think of, didn't find anything. Where would you start with somebody that doesn't know their target?
So the first thing it would be, what are your signs? What are your symptoms? Like, what is it that you're feeling in this moment? Oh, I'm really tired a lot. Okay, well, what else? Like, how's the appetite? How's your hydration? Like, what is the foundation of your health first?
Mhm.
Let's work on that. Let's clear that out of the way because once the easy stuff's out of the way, everything else manifests. It's interesting because in Chinese medicine, if somebody has a particular deficiency or an excess, in other words, if you have some sort of issue with one of the organs, there can be other conditions that developed as a result. So, assuming that, let's say, the problem is there isn't enough movement of energy,
Mm.
because there isn't enough movement of energy and because everything is tied in, other parts of the body are going to get affected. So, you may actually come in and say, I get palpitations. The result or the root cause of that result is not a heart issue. It's the fact that the energy is not flowing so that you can actually nourish the heart so that it's not trying to offload the excess that it's receiving.
Mm.
Thus, with working through that, we eventually peel back the layer, get to the next layer, get to the next layer until we finally find the root and it presents itself. Then it's a
Wow.
complete removal.
Yeah. If somebody comes to you, how do you do like a intake, or how do you know that somebody is a good client for you?
Always, there's always an intake and there's always a consultation to start with. Because in this field, yes, I can do a lot. And yes, I can help anybody that comes my way. But also because of the philosophy, one of the philosophies is Taoism. And maybe
Mm.
I'll touch upon that in a bit. But if I'm not meant to help that person, if I'm not a good fit for that person, then it is not within my power nor right to do so. And thus they need to be sent to someone else. That could be a referral from my end to say, hey, I think you would do better with this person over here.
Yeah.
Or it could also be, I need you to look at these things first. Some of them would be get your physical done or get some diagnostic testing first, and then let's see and go
Mhm.
from there. But typically, I refer most people out if we're unable to work together.
Yeah. And you describe your work as addressing the physical, energetic, and spiritual together. Why is it so important to integrate all of those three?
Well, because when disease manifests in any one of those three layers, it can show up afterwards in a layer. So assume a cyst gets removed. So the cyst is removed from the physical layer. Maybe there's nothing wrong with the energy layer. But if there's something wrong in the spiritual body of the person, that's the manifestation of the cyst. So what occurs is that you may remove the physical cyst, but there's an intercommunication from the body to the energy of the spirit and back. And it will show back up again because the spirit body says, hey, this is here right now. The best way to understand it is think of the phantom pain or the phantom itch phenomenon. Somebody has their leg cut off. The spirit body doesn't know any better. The
Yeah.
spirit body still thinks the physical body part is there. So it will continue the functions that need to be done. The energy body will take that information and try to relay it to the physical body and then come back and say, it's not there. But you'll still get that itch or that pain because the communication between the three is always ongoing. People that are missing a gallbladder, for example, it's the same thing. And thus, if the disease is manifested in any one of the other bodies, it will show up regardless of whether it gets removed. That's also why, if the disease predominantly starts in the physical body, over time, it will show up in the other three bodies. So even if it's physically removed, because it's already imprinted and embedded in those other ones, they need to be cleared out as well.
How do you evaluate the energy field in somebody?
A lot of it is through kinesthetic awareness. So I could glide my hands over and feel differences in temperature. I can feel differences in magnetic or electrical capability as one such example. And other times I just know. And that's the best way to explain it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Can you share a client story that shows what's possible with this work?
Sure. There's a lady that I knew, and I knew her fairly well. We were, it was in the evening. We were all at a hotel. It was after an event. And as we were talking, she started to feel a little ill. And so she laid down. She was starting to get very hot. She started to sweat a little. And her bowels started to move. And she said, I think I need to go to the restroom. I think maybe something's wrong with me. So she did. And she went with one of our other friends who accompanied her, who then came back and told me, this isn't good. She's not able to get up from the bathroom floor right now.
Mm.
So we went, we got her. We didn't know what was going on at the moment. So we went, we get her. We were able to get a wheelchair. And as she was there, I said, I think we need to call an ambulance, but let's see what we can do. Cause she did vacate her bowels. So maybe she's okay, maybe not. But when I tried checking her signs, I tried checking her pulses. They're very faint. I couldn't
Mm.
really feel them, whether it was there in the carotid. And she had a very pale, clammy look to her as well. So we called for an ambulance to have her get sent to the hospital. And in the meantime, she was starting to get a little worse as well. And she wanted to lay on the ground. So I said, I have to do something for you while we're waiting, something to at least support you. So I went and I worked with her while she was there and cleared off the heat, cleared off what I could find. And then the paramedics came by, they picked her up. So we didn't know at the time it was food poisoning that she was going through.
Mm.
So they picked her up, and as they were taking her out, she vomited at the entrance, and then they took her to the hospital. What we later found out was from, of course, the food poisoning, but she told us later that once she got on the ambulance, after a few minutes, she started to feel very, very good. Her bowels were no longer irritated. And she got to the hospital and everything was okay. They checked her out. They told her it was food poisoning. So, what was happening with her in regards to her constitution, she was a fairly weak constitution person. And in the moment, she was not able to vacate the poisoning she had consumed by vomiting, because that would be the typical response for most people. So it was
Mhm.
trying to work its way through her system, which is why her bowels were vacating. When I went to work on her, not knowing what the issue was, clearing what I found, that gave her enough strength for her to be able to remove the source of poisoning by vomiting.
Mm. Wow.
And yeah, so that's the story.
Yeah. Are you able to facilitate yourself on some of this? Can you do it on you yourself?
Yes, but the way we do it on ourselves is different.
Mm.
So if you look at, there's a lot of old manuals on it, and there's some that are more modern forms, but there is what's known as like Qigong or Dao Yin. And those are the original forms that were passed down that work the energetic system of the body. At the same time, you're working, of course, the physical and the spiritual. And it's a combination of physical movement with breath coordination, with mental coordination as well. And what that does is it helps build up your vitality, and it helps to promote a more radiant state of health. So I don't necessarily treat myself in the same way I treat someone. Instead, we have a particular set of movements, forms, respirations, and such that we do on a daily, and that gives us the same result.
So it's kind of like, what do you want to say? Almost like something that you would do every day to just kind of help keep yourself regulated.
Yeah, and not just regulated, but it actually builds vitality. So if
Mm.
you look at Tai Chi would be the closest thing most people would understand it to be. It's not, but Tai Chi, you see the small movements and you see how everything looks, in a sense, peaceful. What's going on internally is they're moving and they're manipulating the energetic system in order to clear out anything that's gunking up the system to keep the pipes open. And that's what allows for the more radiant state of health. As you keep doing that, the pipes get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And so the
Now,
idea is that over time, if you do it on a long enough scale, you get to a very, very, very healthy state. There are stories of people that have lived, well, at least 100, although there's stories of people who have lived far beyond 100, but who they have their practices like that. And that's something that they do. And it's a daily thing because it's no different than brushing your teeth or bathing, trimming your nails. It's maintenance in a sense.
When you talk about energetic systems, do you mean meridians? Or is that something
Meridians,
different?
meridians is one. It works on a lot of different levels, and it depends on the style you do too. There, it could work with the meridians, it could work with the organs, it could work with the chakra system, it can work with the actual energy
Okay.
body, it could work with the fascial system. It at the end, it's all connected, but there are different focuses, and the different forms focus on different things. For
Okay.
example, a fairly common one is called badwajin, and with badwajin, or eight pieces of brocade, I think is the English name. But that one in particular, you're working a lot of the meridians, and you're hitting some of the fascial system as well.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about some of those as being energy, but yeah, it makes sense. So it's becoming more common knowledge that trauma often lives in the body now.
Mhm.
How does Chinese energetic medicine help release old wounds that traditional medicine can't touch?
Well, one of the ways is through direct session. Another way is through what I was just talking on, the Dao Yin or the Qigong, that helps to also softly and gently remove embedded trauma.
Mm,
Because the issue with trauma is, think of it like a balloon that you have inflated, and you have a choice. You can burst it, which could be a very, very difficult thing for someone to deal with. Or if you've untied it, you can just slowly deflate it over
mm,
time. But of course, because you're deflating it, you always have the choice to reinflate it, which is what happens with some people is they choose to just keep inflating it, inflating it.
yeah.
And so it's either through direct session or through personal practices or a combination of both that we begin to remove that. Because once you get rid of one, the most important one, let's say, usually another one shows up and then another one shows up because there's all these little micro traumas that accumulate in our lives, even from small events like the cashier was a little slow because they're new and it frustrated you. Maybe somebody cut you off. Maybe somebody said something to you that reminded you of something your parents said and now you're sad. Yeah, there's all these little things that if we don't express, the pressure just builds up. But through daily routines or through sessions, if you have something more serious, especially in the moment when it comes up, that it can be removed easily, then those are the methods that we use and work with.
And you were talking about when I was asking about the energy system, how you could kind of tell, from heat in the body and things like that. So is this something that you can do remotely as well, or you have to be
Absolutely.
in person? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It works both ways. It could be done remotely or it could be done in person. The majority of people I work with tend to be remote.
And it works just as well.
It
Yeah.
does.
That's
Sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes remotely, depending on the person, as opposed to being in person. Because although it's a no touch system, when we do the original protocols, sometimes there is light touch. I think there's something to that. I
hmm
think that's just the reassurance. Yeah. But for the most part, anybody that I've worked, it was no touch. That lady, for example, who I spoke about that had the food poisoning,
hmm
I didn't put my hands on her while I was treating at all.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So you often mention energetic blockages. From your perspective, what creates energetic blockages and what does it feel like when that energy finally starts flowing again?
There's a lot of different things that can. Diet is a big one, but emotions are a huge one that can cause a lot of blockages in people. And a lot of it stems from trauma and also your upbringing.
Mm,
And those are some of the ones because even though there's things that are considered blockages that you wouldn't even consider blockages. There's obvious ones like, oh, the arteries in my heart are blocked. It's a form of an obvious blockage, or I have some sort of intestinal issue that slows down my digestion. That would be another form of a blockage. But there's also belief systems that can be a blockage. I can't be better than my parents. That's also a blockage. So a lot
mm,
of this is formed either in early development or throughout life as you keep looping, in a sense, you keep reinforcing that cycle. And what happens is when you get a big release like that, one of the first things that typically happen is you get a greater sense of fatigue. And that's no different than when your computer has been on for too long and needs to restart because it has updates. it's the same thing. So then at that time, you step away,
Mm.
give yourself some time, and you come back. Typically, life feels different. Colors seem different, tastes seem different, sounds seem different, and there are things that you used to hold on to that you no longer lead, or
Yeah.
things that bother you that you say to yourself, huh, that doesn't bother me anymore. It just naturally flows in a different way where it's just more intuitive for you. Just do it.
Yeah, it sounds like there's more ease just in everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you help someone, or can you help someone who feels disconnected from themselves start to reclaim their energy and their vitality?
Well, a lot of it comes from those prescription exercises. For example, if they're seeing me in session, it's the prescription exercises because I am not the one that's going to do all the work. If it's your health, you need to put some effort into it. After all, you live in that body 24 hours and you see me maybe an hour
Yeah.
once a week.
Yeah.
And so it's really just giving these tools and helping give different perspectives to say, have you considered this? Have you looked at this? What do you think about this? And in that way, they are empowered to then go forth and keep themselves into a better state of health. Maybe they don't come in session. Maybe they just want to take a class because they either want to educate themselves or they want to feel good and feel healthy. Great. That's also the same thing because I'm still giving tools, whether that's through know how or physically doing things.
Yeah. My clients, I always tell them it's like going to a personal trainer. If you don't work out in between and you just see me once a week, you're going to get a little benefit, but you're not going to get a full benefit as if you're doing
Yeah.
homework that I give you during the week. You're going to see, I think, because what I do has a little bit of hypnotherapy in it. And,
Mhm.
people see movies and go to the fair and they see that they think I'm just going to put them to sleep and they're going to wake up,
Right.
not wanting to smoke anymore. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not like that. So, I think forming expectations from clients is a big deal as well because I think a lot of times they just think they're going to, see you at 3 sessions and I'm going to be all better. My goal
Mhm.
is to give you a lot of tools so that you can do a lot of this yourself because I think we do give a lot of our healing power away to doctors and, medicines and, things like that. There's a lot that we can do on our own. And I want to give you those tools and that power back to be able to facilitate yourself, in a lot of cases too. So, yeah, but doing the work in between shows your commitment to healing, the commitment to yourself, and also helps the process go a little bit quicker and easier.
Yeah. Because, like in my line of work, when I work on something, it's gone.
Mm,
We permanently remove things. However, you always have a choice.
yes.
So if you fall back into the same habits, it's going to come back again. And
Hmm.
that's why it's so important to give these tools and understanding and say, we're working together. You're just as
Yes.
responsible as I am. There was a
Right.
lady who she wasn't diabetic yet, but she was very borderline pre-diabetes diabetes. And so she did a hard turn and said strict keto. And so
Mm,
she was strict keto for a very long time. I think she did about 6 months, maybe a little longer. Very strict keto on everything. Numbers came down. She felt great. And then she said, I'm only doing that to get better. It's like, not forever. So then she started jumping back on. And within a few weeks, numbers like shot back up.
oh,
And she was
wow.
already in that danger state again.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's an ongoing process. It really
Mhm.
is. Yeah. So you studied like 4,000 hours for your doctorate in Chinese energetic medicine. What was the most surprising thing that you learned in that process?
Ooh, where do I start?
Hmm.
I'd say really some of the most surprising things is it comes down to your belief. Do you actually believe that you could get better? Do
Mm,
you actually believe that you're deserving of getting
mm,
better? And a lot of it deals as well with your upbringing. Do you believe that you can do better than your parents? And there's also something to be said about believing in a higher power, because that also affects the beliefs you have about yourself and the world around you. It's interesting to me because they say, although I never was a part of it, but they say that when somebody goes into business and they take courses or they take economics and they try to go into like financing or investing, they are always parroting the same thing, that it's essentially a dog eat dog world and you have to take from others for yourself and blah, blah, blah. People don't go in thinking that way, but they sure do think that way at the end of it. That
Mm,
becomes their belief system. And then, of course, it perpetuates it because now, if I'm to come in, I believe it's true because everybody else is doing that. Yeah. So,
yeah.
really, what it comes down to is I would say that's the most surprising thing is your your belief in yourself, your belief in a higher power, and your beliefs about the world.
Mm. In your intake, do you talk about those things that you were just mentioning?
There's a few. There's a few that do come because there's a few important ones,
Hmm.
but usually that conversation ends up happening later on down the line, far more in depth because there still has to be some rapport built. There still has to be some trust built as well.
Yeah.
You know, slamming someone right from the get go. Well, do you believe this and this and this and this? You know, it's like it's not ideal. I do ask people if they believe in something higher or not. That is
Hmm.
definitely something that gets asked because especially when you have a condition, whether you believe or not in something beyond you makes a difference in how
Yeah.
long it takes for you to get better.
Yeah. How do you deal with a client that has maybe some beliefs from childhood? Can you help clear that?
Yes, but of course, we have to sort through what's on the surface first. It's although it's possible to just jump straight in, find the deepest root, and yank it out. I say that word on purpose because really it's a yanking. And if they're not ready for that, then I'm doing them a disservice with that.
Hmm.
That's why it's we start with okay, what's presenting itself today? That's what's ready to leave. Let's
Yeah.
remove that.
Yeah.
The way I equate it is like a dam. When the beaver builds a dam, they use all these sticks to block off a river. If I'm helping you, which is what we're doing when we're facilitating, you're over there pulling the sticks out. And I'm watching you because I want to make sure the water is not going to overtake you. And I want to make sure you're not pulling the wrong sticks. If
Mm.
the stick comes out easy, that's the one to take.
Yeah.
But if you're struggling with the stick, not today. Whenever that one is ready, then we remove it. Otherwise, it's move on to the next one. We
It's like
take off.
Jenga.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Take off all the small, easy stuff first. And then as you do that, more loosens up, more can get removed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is one misconception about energy medicine that you'd love to clear up?
Well, the biggest thing is that it doesn't work.
Mm,
I'd say it's the biggest misconception that everybody has. And that actually comes down to a belief as well. Because when you look at a lot of the people that don't believe, they'll say it's not proven, it's hocus pocus, it's woo woo, it's blah, blah, blah. Well, that's a belief system. And in your belief system, science is the religion in a sense.
mm,
Because if science is all about open mindedness, then it needs to be tested rigorously and seen if it's true and it needs to be replicated. The system that I work with is one that can be replicated because the instructor, Sifu Johnson, he went to the medical Qigong clinics in China, which that's what they do. If it works, they keep it. If it doesn't work, they toss it out the window. But they're open minded about things because, well, let's test it out. And so that's what I say is a big thing is that people don't think it works, but we have things that you can't see, like radio waves and Wi-Fi that are forms of electrical energy. We can test for those. We have things like photons that come in through light that some of it we can visually see, some of it we cannot. We don't have the receptors for it, but we can build devices to find them. And so that's where I think the biggest misconception comes from is that they think it's not real yet. Energy is all around us affecting us.
mm,
We just can't test what it is just yet. But to
yeah.
outright say it doesn't exist, especially if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, which is part of the skepticism, that's good. But if you haven't seen it and you outright say it doesn't exist, well, I could easily say, I don't think giraffes exist. I've never seen one. Those that are
Mm,
on television, that's a lie. That's just fabricated CGI from the guys that did Jurassic Park.
yeah. Yeah. Are you seeing a shift in people being more open to non-traditional methods?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Compared to 2019, there has been a huge uptick. And when I say a huge uptick, I mean to the point that I almost fear it's going to become a what's it called? Not a like a trend or a corporate tagline. There's a particular word for it that I'm trying to think. Um, you know how what's the Swedish comfort? Is it Hyggge? I can't remember how to pronounce it.
Mm.
But that became like a little trend for a while, or like Marie
Mm.
Kondo's whole minimalism became
Yes.
like a trend, like a vibe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's getting to the point where enough people are popping in and out of it that that's exactly where it's heading, where the jargon, the understandings, and everything is going to be used by major companies. And so it helps bring awareness, but at the same time, it dilutes it a lot
Mm-hmm.
because now you'll
Yeah.
have more people that, oh, yeah, I can do that. Can you really?
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I first started, everybody was looking for hypnotherapy because that's a little bit of what I do, um, instead of somatics. But now when I get inquiries or searches, I ask people what they searched for on Google, and now they're starting to search for somatic work.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know that's getting more mainstream and getting out there more, which is great. Um, So, for someone listening right now who feels stuck in patterns or pain, what's the first step that they can take, today towards a healing?
Well, the first thing is name it. Yeah. What is it exactly that you're feeling in this moment? What is it about? So, what are you feeling and what is it about? Are you feeling desperation? Is it a financial thing? Is it your living situation? Do you feel that your job is no longer fulfilling you? Do you feel purposeless if that's the case? So, that's the first thing is like name it. What is it? And what is it? You could also go further and say, where is it?
Hmm.
Is it something that you palpably feel? Like, does your heart palpate? Does your stomach churn? Yeah. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's only when you enter a particular place
Yeah.
that it's causing it. So that's
So,
where I would look because those are like the little threads on a really bad, ugly Christmas sweater that you can start to pull and unravel.
so checking in instead of checking out, which is what a lot of people do.
Yeah, because
Just
the
kind of,
solutions, they're not external. There
yeah,
actually is no external solution. The
yeah,
solutions are all internal.
yeah. I feel like we've been trained to tune out so we could keep going a lot of times, which is the exact opposite of what we should be doing.
Yeah, I'd say it's part of it, but I also would say that it's very uncomfortable to tune in.
Yeah,
It's very uncomfortable. And so
yeah.
rather than stepping into comfort, or rather, sorry, rather than stepping into discomfort
Hmm.
and ease, we step into comfort and dis-ease.
Yeah, yeah. What do you say to people that are afraid to maybe open a healing process?
It's difficult, but if you have a strong support system, that's more than enough.
Yeah,
And that strong support system could be one other person. You just need to have someone that's there to assist you when you go through those difficult moments.
yeah. So, where can we find you if somebody wants to get in touch with you?
So I have a few different things going on. My first thing is risetohuman.com is my website. So if someone's looking to book a session or they just want to read a little more, I have a blog that I'm updating here and there when I can. That's the place to go. That's my personal website. I am quite a bit on Threads as well, and that's at JMDCEM, where I do small little guides and intros and things. And I also link to some other works that I have going on there. For example, I just did a Living with the Seasons masterclass to give people an idea of how to work with the seasons,
Mm,
not against it, so that you can be in ease as opposed to dis-ease. And there's going to be seasonal ones coming up. Like I have the big winter one coming up in January. I forget the date that I set, but that's coming down the line too. So, but of course, if you follow me on Threads, you'll get that there. I don't
okay.
update it often, but Instagram is the same tag.
Okay. We'll have all those links in the show notes. This was a super meaningful conversation. I learned a ton, and I appreciate the way that you broke it down easily for us to understand. And thanks for sharing your perspective and your gifts with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Jose Mendoza reminds us that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about uncovering who we are at our core and living from that place. His journey from the medical world into Chinese energetic medicine is proof that sometimes the deepest answers come from looking beyond what we've been taught to expect. All of Jose's links are in the show notes if you would like to explore more of his work. If you've been listening and thinking that you might be a good fit for this podcast, I would love to hear your story. Reach out to me at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com to learn about becoming a guest. And before we wrap up, I will leave you with this. Just like Jose helps people clear energetic patterns that keep them stuck, somatic mindful guided imagery can help you release the hidden imprints living in your body and story so you can move forward in freedom. Find out more at somatichealingjourneys.com. Thanks for listening today, Karma Crew. And as always, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. I'll see you next time.
Mind your own karma, stay in your light. Everyone's fighting their own quiet fight. I found my fire in letting go. Every shadow taught my soul to grow. Take what you need, leave what you don't, and always remember to mind your own karma.